Norwegian Wood, a novel by Haruki Murakami, is more than just a coming-of-age story set against the backdrop of 1960s Tokyo. It is a melancholic meditation on love, loss, mental health, and the fragility of human existence. For readers and literary analysts alike, Norwegian Wood offers a rich tapestry of themes, symbols, and character arcs that invite deep analysis and introspection. In this video, we will delve into the novel's major themes, analyze its characters, explore its narrative structure, and examine the broader context in which the novel operates. We will also look at the novel's resonance in contemporary times, particularly through the lens of mental health and existentialism. At its heart, Norwegian Wood is a novel about memory and its profound influence on the present. The novel opens with the protagonist, Toru Watanabe, hearing the Beatles' Norwegian Wood on an airplane, a song that catapults him into a reflection on his past, particularly his experiences as a college student in Tokyo during the late 1960s. This framing device is significant because it shows how memory can be triggered by seemingly mundane experiences. Memory, in Norwegian Wood, is not a passive recollection but an active force that shapes Toru's emotions and actions. The novel is filled with moments where past and present collide, illustrating how deeply entrenched memories of love and loss can be. Toru's memory of Naoko, a fragile and emotionally tormented woman, serves as a central narrative force. Naoko's beauty, vulnerability, and tragic trajectory haunt Toru, much in the same way the song, Norwegian Wood, lingers in his mind. Murakami uses memory not only as a narrative device but as a way to explore the persistence of trauma and the difficulty of moving forward in life. In literature, memory often serves as a tool to understand the self, and Norwegian Wood follows in this tradition. Toru's memories, particularly of his relationships with Naoko and Midori, are tied to his evolving sense of identity. As readers, we are invited to question whether memory is a reliable source of truth or if it is inevitably colored by emotion, loss, and nostalgia. In the context of Norwegian Wood, we might question Toru's reliability as a narrator. His recollections of Naoko, in particular, seem tinged with idealization, and we never fully know if the version of Naoko he presents is an accurate reflection of who she truly was or merely how he wanted to remember her. The novel's ambiguous treatment of memory forces readers to grapple with the limitations of subjective experience, particularly when dealing with trauma and love. Toru's reliance on memory also speaks to a broader theme within Murakami's works, the idea that the past is inescapable. While many characters in literature seek to move beyond their pasts, Toru seems unable to do so, and the novel becomes a meditation on the power of memory to imprison as much as to enlighten. One of the most poignant themes in Norwegian Wood is the fragility of human emotions, especially in the context of love and loss. The novel portrays love as both an overwhelming force and a destructive one, capable of bringing people together but also tearing them apart. Toru's relationships with Naoko and Midori embody two very different kinds of love. His love for Naoko is steeped in melancholy, driven by a sense of duty and compassion. It is a love marked by tragedy, as Naoko's mental health deteriorates, ultimately leading to her death. Theirs is a relationship that cannot flourish in the traditional sense. It is weighed down by Naoko's trauma from the death of her former lover, Kazuki, and her emotional instability. Naoko's fragility is symbolic of the broader emotional fragility explored in the novel, highlighting how mental health struggles can complicate and even destroy relationships. In contrast, Toru's relationship with Midori is vibrant and full of life, yet it is not without its own complexities. Midori, a bold and independent woman, represents a different kind of love, one that is more grounded in reality but also more unpredictable. Where Naoko is distant and emotionally closed off, Midori is candid, direct, and sometimes abrasive. She embodies the complexities of human relationships, where love is messy, imperfect, and full of contradictions. Murakami's exploration of love and loss is not limited to romantic relationships. Friendship and family bonds are also portrayed as fraught with emotional intensity. Toru's friendships with characters like Nagasawa and Reiko illustrate the different ways in which people navigate relationships while grappling with their own insecurities and limitations. Nagasawa, for example, views relationships as disposable, pursuing numerous sexual conquests without emotional attachment, while Reiko, like Naoko, struggles with the burden of past traumas and failed relationships. Grief is another key theme in the novel, woven into the fabric of the characters' lives. Naoko's inability to move beyond the death of Kazuki, a pivotal moment in her life, mirrors Toru's struggles with her eventual suicide. The deaths of loved ones become defining moments that shape the trajectories of the characters' emotional lives. Grief, in Norwegian Wood, is not something that can be neatly resolved. Instead, it lingers, manifesting in depression, isolation, and, in some cases, death. Murakami portrays grief as an ever-present force, particularly for those who, like Naoko, cannot escape their past traumas. Toru's journey through the novel is one of learning how to live with grief, of accepting the scars it leaves without allowing it to consume him completely. In many ways, Toru's character is defined by his resilience in the face of overwhelming sorrow. Mental health is a major undercurrent throughout Norwegian Wood, and the novel provides an introspective look at the ways mental illness affects not only the individual but also the people around them. Naoko's mental illness, which appears to be a combination of depression and possibly post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, becomes a central aspect of her character in the plot. Her time at the sanatorium is emblematic of her need for healing, though it also symbolizes the isolation that often accompanies mental illness. The sanatorium itself, isolated from the outside world, represents both a refuge and a prison for Naoko, a place where she seeks solace but ultimately succumbs to her inner demons. Murakami does not romanticize mental illness. Instead, he presents it as an all-encompassing struggle that consumes Naoko, as well as Reiko, another character who suffers from long-term emotional and psychological struggles. Their stories illustrate the devastating effects of untreated or unhealed trauma, emphasizing the importance of mental health care and the difficulty of finding true healing. Beyond its exploration of mental health, Norwegian Wood also delves into existential themes. Toru, in many ways, embodies the existential protagonist, searching for meaning in a world that often seems arbitrary and indifferent. His experiences with love, loss, and death force him to confront the transient nature of life and the absence of easy answers. Murakami's narrative is infused with existential questions. What does it mean to live authentically? How do we find meaning in a world filled with suffering? Can love truly overcome the weight of individual isolation? These questions are not answered directly in the novel, but they permeate the characters' lives, particularly Toru's. His journey, much like that of many existential protagonists, is one of self-discovery, an attempt to find some semblance of meaning in a chaotic and often uncaring world. In this sense, Norwegian Wood resonates with the works of existential writers like Albert Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre, who similarly grapple with questions of existence, freedom, and the absurdity of life. For Toru, the absurdity of life is embodied in the tragic loss of those he loves and the deep sense of isolation that pervades his experiences. The novel's setting, both in time and place, plays a critical role in shaping the narrative. Set in the late 1960s, a period of political unrest and cultural change, Norwegian Wood captures the essence of a generation caught between traditional values and modern ideals. The 1960s in Japan were marked by student protests, a growing counterculture, and a burgeoning sense of individualism. Murakami incorporates this historical context into the novel, using it as a backdrop for his characters' personal struggles. Toru's university experience is not just about academic life but also about navigating the shifting social landscape. The political activism of the time serves as a counterpoint to Toru's personal quest for meaning, and while many of his peers are deeply involved in the political movements of the day, Toru remains detached. His focus is inward, on his own existential questions, rather than outward on the societal upheavals around him. In contrast, characters like Nagasawa embody the cynicism and detachment of the era. Nagasawa's pursuit of power and success, devoid of emotional connection, reflects a growing sense of alienation in modern society. Through these characters, Murakami paints a portrait of a generation searching for identity and meaning in a rapidly changing world. Murakami is known for his use of symbolism, and Norwegian Wood is no exception. The titular song, Norwegian Wood, serves as a recurring motif throughout the novel, representing nostalgia and the bittersweet nature of memory. The song, much like the novel itself, evokes feelings of longing, melancholy, and unattainable love. Every time Toru hears Norwegian Wood, he is transported back to his memories of Naoko and his youth, highlighting the way music can be tied to significant emotional experiences. The song's themes of isolation and unfulfilled love resonate deeply with the novel's exploration of emotional fragility and loss. Nature, particularly in the form of landscapes and natural settings, is another important symbol in Norwegian Wood. The sanatorium where Naoko spends much of her time is situated in a remote, natural environment, far removed from the hustle and bustle of Tokyo. This setting symbolizes both isolation and a desire for healing. Naoko and Reiko retreat to nature in hopes of escaping their emotional pain, seeking solace in the quiet beauty of the natural world. However, nature in the novel is not presented as a cure-all for their suffering. While it provides a temporary escape, it cannot resolve the deep-seated emotional and psychological issues the characters face. For Naoko, the sanatorium becomes a kind of limbo, a place where she is suspended between life and death, unable to fully engage with the world or find true healing. The contrast between the natural setting of the sanatorium and the urban landscape of Tokyo serves to highlight the different ways characters cope with their emotional struggles. While Naoko retreats into isolation, Toru remains in the city, grappling with his own existential questions amidst the chaos and anonymity of urban life. This dichotomy between nature and the city underscores the novel's exploration of isolation, both physical and emotional. Water, and rivers in particular, are recurring symbols in Norwegian Wood, representing both change and continuity. Rivers often appear at key moments in the novel, symbolizing the flow of time and the inevitability of change. For Toru, the passage of time is both a source of pain and a necessary part of his journey towards self-discovery. In one notable scene, Toru reflects on the changing seasons in the flow of a river, recognizing that life is constantly in motion, even when it feels stagnant. The river becomes a metaphor for his own life, as he grapples with the tension between wanting to hold on to the past and the need to move forward. Water, in this sense, represents both the inevitability of loss and the possibility of renewal. The moon, another recurring symbol in Norwegian Wood, often appears during moments of introspection and emotional intensity. Murakami uses the moon as a symbol of solitude and emotional distance. When Toru and Naoko share a deeply personal conversation under the moonlight, the moon serves as a silent witness to their emotional vulnerability. Its presence emphasizes the isolation both characters feel, even in moments of intimacy. For Naoko, the moon also symbolizes her distance from the world and her inability to fully connect with those around her. It reflects her fragile mental state, hovering above her like an unreachable object, much like the emotional stability she longs for but cannot attain. Toru Watanabe is the novel's protagonist and narrator, and his journey through Norwegian Wood is one of self-discovery and existential exploration. As a character, Toru is introspective, quiet, and somewhat detached from the world around him. He often observes the lives of others with a sense of emotional distance, even as he grapples with his own internal conflicts. Toru's detachment can be seen as a form of emotional self-preservation. Having lost his close friend Kazuki to suicide, Toru is acutely aware of the fragility of life and the pain of loss. This awareness leads him to adopt a stoic approach to his relationships, particularly with Naoko. He cares deeply for her but also understands that their relationship is doomed by her emotional instability. As an existential protagonist, Toru embodies many of the themes explored by existential philosophers like Sartre and Camus. He is constantly searching for meaning in a world that offers no clear answers, and his experiences with love, death, and grief force him to confront the absurdity of life. Throughout the novel, Toru grapples with questions of identity, freedom, and responsibility, ultimately realizing that he must forge his own path in life, even if that means enduring pain and loss. Naoko is one of the novel's most enigmatic characters, and her emotional fragility is central to the narrative. She is haunted by the death of Kazuki, her childhood friend and first love, and her grief manifests in deep psychological trauma. Naoko's struggle with mental illness is portrayed with sensitivity and nuance, and Murakami avoids reducing her to a mere tragic figure. Instead, Naoko is a complex character, torn between her desire for connection and her inability to cope with the emotional scars of her past. Naoko's relationship with Toru is marked by both tenderness and tragedy. She sees in him a kindred spirit, someone who understands her pain and is willing to offer support. However, their relationship is ultimately unfulfilling, as Naoko's mental health deteriorates and she becomes increasingly withdrawn. Her eventual suicide is a devastating blow to Toru, but it also serves as a turning point in his emotional journey. Naoko's death forces him to confront the impermanence of life and the limits of his ability to save others. Naoko's character can also be seen as a symbol of unattainable love. Throughout the novel, Toru is drawn to her, but he can never fully reach her. Her emotional distance, exacerbated by her mental illness, creates an insurmountable barrier between them. In this sense, Naoko embodies the novel's theme of unfulfilled desire and the impossibility of fully understanding another person's inner world. In contrast to Naoko, Midori Kobayashi is a character who embodies life, energy, and vitality. She is bold, outspoken, and unafraid to challenge societal norms, making her a stark contrast to the more reserved and introspective Naoko. Midori represents a different kind of love for Toru, one that is grounded in the present, full of passion and unpredictability. Midori's relationship with Toru is complicated by her own emotional baggage, particularly her strained relationship with her family. Despite her outward confidence, Midori is vulnerable and seeks emotional connection just as much as Naoko does. However, when Naoko retreats from the world, Midori engages with it head-on, refusing to be defined by her past traumas. Midori's character serves as a counterbalance to the novel's darker themes of loss and grief. She offers Toru a glimpse of what life could be like if he chooses to embrace the present rather than remain mired in the past. Through Midori, Murakami explores the possibility of healing and moving forward, even in the face of emotional pain. Haruki Murakami's Norwegian Wood is a novel that defies easy categorization. It is a love story, a coming-of-age tale, and an existential meditation all at once. Through its exploration of memory, love, loss, and mental health, the novel offers readers a deeply emotional and thought-provoking experience. At its core, Norwegian Wood is a story about the complexities of human relationships and the inevitability of loss. Murakami's characters are deeply flawed, struggling to find meaning in a world that often feels indifferent to their suffering. Yet, even in the face of tragedy, there is a sense of resilience in the novel. Toru's journey is one of learning to live with grief, of accepting the imperfections of life and love, and of finding a way to move forward. In today's world, Norwegian Wood continues to resonate with readers, particularly in its portrayal of mental health struggles and existential questions. The novel's timeless themes of love, loss, and the search for meaning ensure that it will remain a staple of contemporary literature for years to come. For those seeking an introspective and emotionally rich reading experience, Norwegian Wood offers a profound exploration of the human condition.